Welcome everybody to this afternoon's training on assisting with the reintegration of an incarcerated parent. My name is April Starr and I'm Director of Training and Quality Assurance for Big Brothers Big Sisters Lone Star. For those of you joining us from other Big Brothers Big Sisters agencies in Texas, Lone Star covers North Texas, West Central Texas, and then all the way down to Houston. So we cover a pretty large portion of the state. I'm very happy to have everyone with me, both from our agency and from the other Big Brothers Big Sisters affiliates in the state. A few housekeeping items on how to use your go-to training app today. If you'll look in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see that there's some controls. I have everyone muted right now just to cut down on noise, and when we get to the discussion portion at the end, I will unmute everyone where we can talk freely. You'll notice a little kind of orange hand there in the top right, and that will allow you to raise your hand at any point and get my attention during the training. I'd also like to direct you to the materials portion of your interface. You'll find there a PDF of today's presentation. I would encourage you to download that and keep a copy for yourself. You're also welcome to download it now and follow along with that if you wish, instead of what I have on the screen. It's basically going to be the same thing, just smaller. So, with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started today. What are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about adverse childhood experiences, the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, effects of incarcerated family members on littles, building resiliency in your little, positive communication, how we do this, why, and who do we communicate with, how to support your littles, how to show support towards your little, how your little can recognize what roles are going to change in their family when an incarcerated parent either leaves or returns, and talking about the actual reintegration of an incarcerated parent and how you can help that, and also how you can just support the parents in general. So let's first talk about adverse childhood experiences. We refer to these in a short form as ACEs. In 1996, a study was done by Kaiser Permanente in conjunction with the CDC, looking at 10 adverse childhood experiences that they identified. They did this via survey of about 17,000 people. And the study has continued over the years, and they have added more specific adverse childhood experiences than these. But what they found was that these adverse childhood experiences had some results on the adulthood of these people that were kind of unexpected. So when we talk about ACEs, the basic ones they first studied were abuse and neglect in any form, physical, sexual, psychological. Also household dysfunction. They broke that household dysfunction down into parental incarceration, which we're going to talk about today, substance use around the child, mental illness, a mother being treated violently in front of her children, anxiety and anger in children and their experience of that in the home, and parental separation or divorce. What they found is that these things actually physically affect the body as these children become adults. This is because when children are exposed to these adverse childhood experiences, these ACEs, their body releases cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And cortisol has some effects that can change the way the brain develops because it puts our body in a fight, flight, or freeze mode. And children that are exposed to ACEs on regular tend to stay in this fight, flight, or freeze mode all the time, and their brain and their body being bathed in cortisol all the time results in some things like higher adult morbidity, which means illness and mortality, It leads to diseases like ischemic heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, and even skeletal fractures. It can lower the quality of life in general and lower how much they reach out for healthcare use. It can encourage drug use, alcoholism, depression, and suicide, and it shortens their lifespan overall. The reasons for this is that the brain develops differently under influence of cortisol. Our cognitive function ends up being rather dysfunctional and scrambled compared to what a, quote, normal or average brain would be doing. They've actually looked at brain scans to compare the brain of adults who were exposed to ACEs and adults who were not exposed to ACEs, and found that the functionality was very different between the two. It also means that as an adult, that the brain is going to be used to functioning in fight, flight, or freeze mode, and it will continue it'll continue to do that as an adult. Also, being bathed in cortisol will cause the immune system to lower. As a child, it will not develop as it's supposed to, so it is weaker as you get older, which is one reason they are susceptible to so much disease when they get older and have a shorter lifespan. That even affects the ability of the body to increase bone density as we get older, because as we age as children, our bones gain density, or should normally gain density. And when you're exposed to cortisol, the bones do not gain density as they're supposed to throughout childhood, and that leads to having more skeletal fractures as an adult. Crazy that can affect us in so many ways. So we're going to talk about the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, because littles who experience incarceration in their family are going to go through grief in a way that's very similar to if that parent actually died, because they're going to lose that influence in their life for the time that that parent is incarcerated. So going away, the child knows they're not dead, but in many ways it's kind of going to be like the parent has passed away. So those stages are denial, which is being in disbelief that the family member's been incarcerated or that they won't be coming home soon. Sometimes it's very hard for them to understand that. And even once they do understand it, sometimes, they may just pretend like that really just doesn't apply. It might be easier for them to handle the situation if they keep telling themselves, oh, well, something will happen and he will come home soon. Anger. This can include being angry at the system, being angry at that parent for putting themselves in that situation where they've been incarcerated, angry at the parent that stays at home and how they handle things, anger at their friends and other loved ones and just acting out. Bargaining. A lot of times kids will, say, well, if I act well, then maybe they'll bring my parent back. Depression, obviously, extreme sadness, loss of energy, not eating well, difficulty concentrating, feeling worthless. It can even lead to some pain, chronic pain, and things like that. And acceptance is, them being at peace with what's happened and kind of understanding it. Grief goes in cycles. There's no specific path that this follows. They can cycle through these stages in different orders and cycle through them over and over again. As grief starts to work itself out, they will stay in the acceptance phase more often than they are in the other phases, but they will always cycle through the other phases until the situation has resolved itself. So let's talk a little bit about incarceration in general. Children of Incarcerated Parents is an organization that does advocacy for children who are put in this situation, and as such, they do a lot of research on kind of the children they're serving in our country. So here's some statistics that they've published. 79% of children under 18 have lived with a parent that was incarcerated. 1 in 9 of those children are African American, 1 in 28 are Hispanic, and 1 in 57 are Caucasian. On average, men that are incarcerated are 100 miles away from home, and women are 160 miles away from home. And the reason for this is that we have so many more men incarcerated in the United States that we have more facilities for them, so they end up being closer to their home. With the fewer facilities for women, obviously that means that they're not going to be quite as close all the time. Excuse me. 50% of children who have incarcerated parents are 9 years or younger, and obviously that means that the other 50% are 9 years or older, so it's kind of an even split between young children and teenagers. 2 in 3 families that have a parent that's incarcerated have trouble meeting basic financial needs, basic needs in the home, which is kind of not surprising because in theory they've lost a whole income that was supporting the family. And between 2 and 10% of those parents that are incarcerated end up having their children in foster care for one reason or another. So what are some direct effects of incarceration on your little? It can lead to a decrease in their academic skills and their social skills. It can increase their exposure to violence, profanity, and alcohol and drugs, both in the home and out of the home, in the neighborhood as well. It definitely causes a negative disruption in the little's life and in their family well-being. It can create significant daily stressors for them that most kids don't run into, going back to trouble meeting the needs of the family in general, and then some other stressors that we'll talk about later. They can become clingy and attention-seeking. It can increase problematic behaviors and acting out. They can start withdrawing from others. In younger kids, it can cause tantrums and a lot of crying, or crying easily at things. It can increase aggression and frequent mood changes, and definitely can increase depression and other forms of mental illness. So resiliency is a concept that we talk about when we're referring to kids exposed to maltreatment. It's the concept that they have the ability to adapt and withstand and overcome difficult situations in their life. And helping to build resiliency is very important in children to help them have good outcomes in adulthood. So you can help by improving the quality of the family and household environment with your little while they're a child. There's lots of ways to do that, and we're going to basically talk about a lot of those ways throughout this training. You can support the parents. You can help your little see this as a moment that's a challenge to overcome instead of just a negative event that's happened to them. You can encourage your little to think positively about the future and to have hope. You can help your little to stay committed in their goals in life and not let this distract them away from that. You can empower your little to stay focused on things that they can control and not things that are out of their control. You may remember from your initial pre-match training talking about the zone of control and the zone of concern. And we want to try to help keep our littles focused on that zone of control and not just the zone of concern. The zone of concern is just things that concern them, but they can't really control it. So we want to try to keep them focused on things they actually can control, because that will help them to feel empowered and help them to feel confident in themselves, which goes right on into the next one, which is assisting your little in helping develop strong relationships and building their sense of confidence in their self, which is self-confidence is we're specifically talking about their self-concept on their ability to take on tasks and complete those tasks successfully. And also, don't lower your expectations because they're in a difficult situation. Children tend to live up to expectations or live down to low expectations. So we really want to make sure that we maintain appropriate and high expectations for our kids when they're going through these tough situations. And really, the number one thing that you do to help resiliency in childhood is just being there and being support to them. Most recent research has shown that a child that's facing ACEs in their life have the most resiliency from having just one stable adult influence in their life. It literally only takes one. And that's because it helps them with the load of cortisol in their body. Literally having one person in their life that's an adult, that's stable, can help take some of that stress off of the child and helps negate some of those bad influences from the cortisol in their body. Excuse me. I'm getting over some illness. So let's talk about communication. Why is it important to have an open dialogue? There's so many changes happening during this time when they're losing a parent to incarceration that it's important to provide stability, familiarity, and consistency as much as possible, and open dialogue helps support that. This gives them the chance to decrease the chances of problematic behaviors. It encourages your little to go to the right person for questions and answers regarding difficult matters that they're facing. And it also helps to teach them positive communication skills and help them improve positive communication skills. And all of this goes right back into teaching them that this is a moment that they can learn positively from. It's a teaching moment in their life. So what is supportive communication? Things that you need to know about supportive communication. You want to find out what your little already knows about the incident. And this is so that you know kind of where they are and you have a starting point for communication. You want to make sure that your little knows that you care. You want to show active listening, which means that you want to reflect back to them what you hear them saying. You know, when they say, you know, I'm really mad at my dad that he did this. You know, you say, you know, to let the child know you're listening. You say, oh, I hear that. I can hear the anger. Reflect back that concept that child is telling you. Because really, kids just want to be heard. So we want to focus on active listening more than giving help and problem solving with them. That's the first step is most definitely being that ear for them. We want to allow littles to ask questions and to be honest to answer in our answers because that builds trust and it helps them to feel like they can come to you. We want to validate their feelings and tell them it's okay to feel the way that they feel and that they're not the only person that has felt that way in this situation, which helps them on the next point to express their feelings. And we want to give them some constructive ways to do that through drawing, music, sports, and of course, like I just said, direct conversation with you. And sharing with them experiences that you've had yourself that are similar to this can help, just because it helps them to feel like they're not alone. So you don't want to just be supportive of your little, you want to be supportive of their family as well. You definitely want to consult with the family once you know how much the little knows about the incident. You want to consult with the family to see what else is okay to share with your little about the incident. There may be parts of what happened that they don't want the little to know for various reasons, and we want to respect those reasons. And it doesn't hurt to ask, you know, if you're curious as to why don't you want me to talk about that with them? Please ask the parent or guardian why that is. It's good for you to have open communication with them and to understand their perspective in the situation. Definitely you want to talk to your little about how they're feeling with the loss of this loved one. You want to be extra attentive, spend as much time with them, as you can, as is appropriate, and recognize the difference between being sympathetic and empathetic, meaning you can't ever understand exactly how they feel, and you don't want to ever tell them that you understand exactly how they feel, because that can feel demeaning to a child, to feel like because they know that you can't understand exactly how they feel. So for you to say that can make them feel like their feelings are less important. But it's definitely important to let them know that you are trying to put yourself in their shoes at least. Find ways to have fun with your little, because it's really coping skills. Part of coping skills is finding distraction in those moments when we can't resolve an uncomfortable or painful situation. Allow your little to come to you and talk when they're ready, and try not to pressure them, because pressuring them can kind of hurt that trust. And also, when you talk to them, even after you've talked to the parents about what's okay to talk about in the situation with the little, still use your best discretion on what information about the situation is helpful and what could be harmful. And if you have any question about that, please contact your match support specialist and ask them their opinion. They can give you resources on that, and just discuss the situation with you. So let's talk about how the roles change within the family during situations like this. Due to the absence of a family member or caregiver, there's going to be a lot of adjustment that takes place in the family dynamics and the roles and the duties in the household. So what it can look like for your little is they may feel that they're becoming the man of the house or the mother, assuming adult roles that they would not normally have to assume. They may be having to take care of younger siblings or other family members, and older, like a grandmother that's living with them, or things like that, chip in ways, taking care they would not normally have to do. They may have more chores that they have to take care of at home, like mowing the lawn, and Dad used to do that, or cooking dinner, and Mom used to do that. Needing to pick up a part-time job, even some of the older littles may find themselves having to work after school in order to help with that, the loss of the income from the parent that's incarcerated, understanding that their caregiver may have to work a lot more in order to also help with the loss of that income. And also that there's probably going to be a lot less family time spent together, less attention from the caregivers, and definitely lower family income. Just going to cause some stress, definitely, in the home. So it's important to help your little understand that it's important for them to help out at home, but that they have to balance that with staying on task at school, and also balance that with being able to interact with people in a way that's healthy. And sometimes the extra stress of taking on extra duties at home can definitely cause acting out. You need to stress to them that it's important for them to ask what they can do to help around the house, to reach out and not wait for things to be handed to them, to be proactive. To help them understand that everyone in the family is going to cope with this differently, and that not everyone's going to cope with it the same way they do or react the same way they do, and that they need to be understanding of that. It's good to help them understand why this is all happening, and why the changes are happening in the family specifically. And also that they can use this new role in their family as an opportunity to learn and to showcase leadership skills. It's a good time to talk about leadership skills. It's never too early to teach kids what leadership means, and how important it is and how useful it can be in life. So talking about these things with your little can help empower them and help them maintain some self-worth and gain self-confidence during a time like this. So now let's talk about the actual reintegration of a parent once they're released. So you can help with this before the actual release while they're still imprisoned by encouraging your little to keep up communication. Sometimes kids go through that anger and they don't want to talk to the parent. Almost like either they just don't feel like being around them or communicating them, or they can see it as a way that they can punish the parent for putting them in this situation. And we want to encourage them not to resort to that. We want to encourage them to keep talking to the parent during this time. We want to encourage them to write letters or send cards and pictures, and to support the caregiver in arranging phone calls and visits, days and hours. So like being flexible with the caregiver in scheduling your time with the little, with the idea in mind that there may be times when your little needs to communicate with their parent that's incarcerated instead of going on a visit with you, or if they're on a visit with you, being willing to let them, call during that visitation call time. Maybe they have 5 minutes, a 5-minute window, or whatever in that time that you're spending with them, that maybe you guys could stop what you're doing and they could make the call and talk to their parent and then, keep doing what they're doing. But really, honestly, a lot of time it's probably going to be you guys being flexible on your schedule, on your visits, and your time you spend with your little working around those visitation hours with the parent that's incarcerated. So once the parent is released, we want to prepare the little for how that's going to be, and discussing with them that co-parenting is going to be how their parents or their caregivers are going to interact together to parent them, and that they're going to have another authority figure in their life, and that they may have slightly different rules, and that maybe there's going to be some differences between how the caregivers handle things, and that everybody's going to have to get on the same page, and that's going to take some time for everybody to get on the same page. And talking to them about having patience during this time and understanding is important. There could possibly be custody hearings that happen upon the release of a parent. Obviously, while they're incarcerated, they're not going to have custody, and they may want to get custody or visitation changed once they're released. And preparing a little that may be in that situation for that is important, because they may find themselves testifying before a judge or talking to a judge in chambers about the situation and telling them how they feel about it and their opinions. And so it's good to understand that situation and be able to talk to them about that and help them to have appropriate expectations. And then also understanding that the parent may be different when they come back than when they left. The parent's going to have been through a difficult time as well for various reasons, and they may not behave the same way that they did when they left. And also, on a positive aspect, that a lot of times when people are in prison, they end up going through therapy while they're in prison and make some positive personal changes. And so that may also be different, and different, positive or negative, is still different and still something for a child to have to adjust to. So now I'm going to open up the phone lines. We're going to discuss, ask questions. If any of you guys have had experience with a situation like this before, and you have something to add to the discussion, I would love to hear that. I know all of our bigs would like to hear if anybody has prior experience with this, and what it was like, and things you did, and what kind of success you had. So does anybody have any questions or experiences that they'd like to share? right, don't everybody jump in at once. All right, no questions at all?
Hey, April, it's Jenny.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How
I,
are you today?
good. I'll just share some feedback that I often hear from big brothers, big sisters in our program, our volunteers, that when a parent is integrated back into the home, whether that be they're coming back from incarceration or maybe they've been, they're military and have been on leave, the
Mm-hmm.
volunteer, the big, doesn't always feel that they're needed anymore,
Mm-hmm.
that they are concerned that now that the parent's back, they're essentially being replaced. So I think you made a lot of really valid points today about, how parents are different when they come back, caregivers. And so that consistency that that volunteer provides really does help that child cope. And
Oh, yeah.
children do need to have some reassurance to warm back up to that parent. So just reinforcing how important that role is for big brothers and big sisters to stay consistent.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that feedback. It's very, yeah, I think I can see how a big would be concerned that they won't be needed now that the parent's coming back. But really, when you understand the dynamics of a parent returning like that, um, the big is really needed even more once the parent comes back. I think during that whole transition time, they're just really super important in the little's life. Um, yeah. Anybody else have a question or commentary? You're also welcome to type in the chat if you don't want to like vocally speak up, and I'll be happy to read your question or comment.
I have a question. This
Yes.
is Carol Steele.
Hi, Carol.
My little her dad was recently out of prison at the beginning of the year, and I'm in Dallas. Dad's in Houston, and I guess Dad's offering the world to her, and she thinks, well, now I'm going to go live with him, and Mom's scared to death, and he's been incarcerated pretty much her whole entire life, and
Wow.
I'm hoping for the best that he's not going to go back in, but according to Mom, it's a pattern, and so how do I prepare her for? I'm hoping it doesn't happen. I have hope that he maybe has turned himself around, but according to Mom, he's still, he's been on the streets forever. So I'm just curious of what's a good way to keep her realistic of, yes, I know this is your dad and you love him, but, I guess that's my question.
Sure. So I think this goes back to some of the like the open communication skills. So first, I think it's important for you to get an understanding from your little about what she knows about his history.
Right.
First, and then I would talk to Mom and see. I would have an open dialogue with Mom and say, this is what she told me that she knows about Dad's history, and have you talked about to her anymore about his history openly, and are you okay with me talking to her about it, like, and ask her, what she may or may not be okay with you talking about with her. Hopefully, she would be okay with you talking about honestly about that history.
Right. I have done that.
Yeah.
I have had that, but I guess it just needs to be a continuing
Yes.
ongoing dialogue of,
Yes.
if it does happen again, then the whole grief cycle is going to go back through it all over again. And
Yes.
I
So
have talked to Mom of how much the little
Mhm.
does know and does not
Yep.
know.
Well, good, good. So you've already got a good start going. So yes. So here's the other thing is to reiterate it because as humans, we don't learn things the first time we hear them. Really, we don't retain it. So hearing that more than once will start helping to her assimilate that knowledge and the idea of his history, and to start incorporating that. I think it's important to be supportive of the father in the fact that I think it's important to have the discussion in the light of dad means really well. You know, his intention. I'm sure his intentions are really good, but you know, but remember the history part. You know, so to be supportive in that way. We certainly don't want to sound undermining of the father because then that can set up a rift between you and her likelihood to listen to you and trust you. And then also I think oh goodness, I lost my train of thought.
Hey, April, can I add to your train of thought while you're trying to get it back?
Yes, go for it.
We also have, I saw a handful of match support specialists on here, so those folks are welcome to chime in if they have some feedback. I would also suggest to you looking towards the future with her. You know, that whole locus of control that we were talking about. Ultimately, we can't change the past. We do need to learn from it, but we can't change it. And it doesn't mean the future is necessarily going to be as the past, although we understand patterns of behavior. Have conversations with her about what do you think it's going to be like to live with your dad?
Okay, that was my train of thought. You reminded me of it.
And, you know, talk about what do you think your dad's going to be like? Your mom has been your parent this whole time. How do you think your dad's going to parent differently? What rules do you think he might have that are different? How will you respond if he, you know, if you ever make a bad choice and he corrects you and it's different than how your mom does it? So having these conversations with her, because no matter how old she is, teenager or a 2-year-old, 6-year-old maybe, when your parents coming back in, you have them in this bubble and they have this halo, no matter the mistakes they've made. And so helping her get a better grasp on what the reality might be may then make it easier to address times when she gets frustrated. If she does end up living with him, if that does happen, and she talks to you frustrated and be like, well, remember when you told me you thought it would be like this? Is it like that? Is it not? Why do you think it's not? All of these discussions can help her get a better grasp of reality and level some expectations for her.
And also from the developmental aspect of that, when kids, even teenagers, when they're faced with ACEs, and you know we're talking about like their brain being bathed in cortisol, that actually lowers their ability to cognitively reason. And so it's really important to help them learn those cognitive reasoning skills, and we do that by doing just what Jenny was talking about, by literally sitting with them and leading them through the thought process of critically thinking about what is the future going to look like? What is that? What does this mean? What's going to be the outcome of this? Because they have trouble connecting those dots. Certainly younger children like really always have trouble connecting those dots because of just part of how their brain functions at younger ages. But even teenagers, when they've been faced with ACEs in their life, don't develop those cognitive thinking skills as well as other children do. So they really need that support in learning those critical thinking skills like that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question, concern, thought, experience? All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to list some resources and references on the screen there. Those are, of course, in your handout. If you guys want to see where some of this data came from and just find out more information, there's lots of stuff to look at on this page here. And also, as always, if you ever have any questions about any of this or any of the further research you might do into this, please contact your match support specialist. We're happy to help you understand this stuff and give you more resources and all of that good stuff. I would encourage you, when you close out of this session, you're going to get a request for a survey. I would appreciate the survey feedback. This helps us to provide trainings to you guys that you find helpful and support you in your matches the best that we can. And also, we have more webinars coming up next month. Next month's topic is supporting self-worth in your little, which is a great topic. We're going to have it again on the 2nd and the 4th Thursday of the month at 12:30. I would urge you to join that one. You'll be getting information from your match support specialist and in newsletters and such soon on how to register for that. Please tell a friend, even if they're not part of Big Brothers Big Sisters. We love to have people come and learn. It's free for everyone, so spread the word, and I hope you join me for those next month. Thank you very much for joining us today, everybody, and have a great afternoon.